What's going on, everyone? Hello again. This is King Orange back again for another video. And here today we are covering our part 2 podcast of Star Wars Clone Wars Microseries Volume 2. With me today, I have my good friend Deadponic.
Hello, and I brought a friend just for an emergency.
Oh dear. And with that in mind, we are covering Volume 2 of the Clone Wars Microseries. And in case anyone hasn't already seen Part 1 is currently on Deadponic's channel at the moment. The link will be included down below in the description. And yeah, this one's going to be covering Volume 2, which specifically covers the later chapters. So with that out of the way, let's get started. So for context, the Clone Wars microseries came out from 2003 to 2005. It took place, it came out in between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, and was kind of there as a nice little placeholder for mainstream television. And so pretty much by the time we get to part 2, we're getting close to the end, where the end point is actually pretty much that show ends about 2 months before Revenge of the Sith, and much of the final events pertaining to the microseries are actually depicting essentially the opening crawl of Revenge of the Sith. And so there's a lot to break down here, and yeah, much like the first one, it covers a lot of stuff that's pretty much a lot of it is going to essentially operate as setup for Revenge of the Sith. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's get started. So
All right.
let's start out where we left off.
Okay, so Ki-Adi-Mundi was in the middle of fighting General Grievous, and a clone team has been sent in to rescue the survivors. We actually start off with basically the clone troopers gearing up, and we actually see the commander. I believe it's Commander Fordo. I could be wrong here. He actually, we see the back of his hair, and it looks similar to Jango Fett. He puts on his helmet. We see a bunch of ARC troopers gearing up, and the gunship pilot says, "Approaching droid perimeter. We are undetected. Begin jamming their signals, sir." And they start gunning and they start dropping a bunch of bombs. And well, the silver battle droids are not stupid here. They actually take notice of this and they start firing. And basically they rappel down, and I swear to God, these ARC troopers they're kind of exacerbating it a little bit, but literally there's one with a minigun, there's one with a quad cannon, and there's, a couple of other ARC troopers, and they basically go in to rescue the survivors. They charge in, and they run into, Ki-Adi-Mundi and Grievous actually fighting, and, well, unfortunately, Grievous' playtime is over because the clones basically interrupted, and they start firing at him, and he's literally just running away, and he's literally running on the walls, and Ki-Adi-Mundi's like, "Shoot him down! Shoot him down!" kind of thing, and then the gunship comes in, and literally starts firing at Grievous too. And they literally are suppressing him until they can get everybody out. And Ki-Adi-Mundi, you can tell he's clearly he's not in his right mind state. And he goes, "No, we must pursue. General, we can't. The survivors will die." So he finally listens to reason, and they get aboard the gunship, and they get the hell out of Dodge. And,
And meanwhile, they blow their way out, but Grievous isn't really all that upset about this. He's kind of like, you know what? Yeah, go ahead and run, Jedi. You're only prolonging the inevitable.
Oh, I love that. And then
it's such a good, like I said, just the entire Battle of Hypori bit is just such a perfect introduction to this character. And even though Volume 1 obviously has more of portraying Grievous's badassery, even in the case of Volume 2, because if I'm not mistaken, I think the later chapters, I think the showrunners did pretty much make the decision to essentially, because they know how Grievous turns out in Revenge of the Sith, they do decide to tone him down a little bit within the second volume compared to the first.
Oh, they do something unintentionally hilarious during the battle, which we'll get to, but I will...
Yeah, but it's a case of saying, even though he's toned down here compared to Volume 1, he is still a complete badass where, yeah, sure, he has to retreat from the clones and the gunship, but he still keeps, the momentum going, still keeps fighting until he can't. And then essentially, even as the Jedi are leaving, this is a case of the Jedi are running from him and his troops, not the other way around.
And then we cut to Coruscant, where Anakin is hooded and he's walking among the people, and he's kind of stealth, and, well, he has his, basically his secret reunion with Padme, which he even comments, we shouldn't be hiding something like this. And also, And then, 3PO comes in to cockblock everything, and even Anakin's like, oh no. And this leads to one of the most inappropriate things I've ever seen in Star Wars. That's saying something. Like, this actually does explain how 3PO gets his gold plating. Gold plating? Well, let's see it then. Oh, and it's like, and even the music is like suggestive.
So sexual. Can we also make mention how the minute Anakin and Padme meet up? Because Anakin thinks it's like, ooh, some spy trying to follow him. He's like, Annie! And right then, they just go right at it. And literally, the voice actress for Padme literally does a moan as the kiss is... I'm like, guys, this is PG here. This is PG. What are you doing? What do you think you're doing? Are you out of your mind? But yeah, 3PO showing off is insane. And then...
the gold armor plating, the gold plating, and even Anakin's like, call back to call forward, impressive. Most impressive.
I will also credit one thing, just with the build-up to the Padme scene. Just seeing all the walking around and the different stuff going on Coruscant is just so good-looking within the show from an art style perspective. Because, like, Genny Tartakovsky really does not waste any expense, where he constantly draws unique designs going around and really just making Coruscant feel so lively, which will definitely come into play a lot when you account for what happens later in the microseries. But yeah, right as Anakin and Padme and 3PO are doing their thing, Obi-Wan immediately calls Anakin. He's like, young one, the council requires your presence.
It's like, oh, great. So then they have that conversation of where, again, another scolding, and Obi-Wan's like, well, as long as you're my Padawan, you will follow my example and listen to me when I say. And Anakin like brings up Qui-Gon. He says, well, you're no Qui-Gon Jinn, and then he immediately apologizes. And I think that's a really nice touch. And also, this also leads finally to...
It's a good humanization effort, because it's like, Anakin just saying that in isolation would make you go, damn, what a dick. But the fact that he says it out of anger, like, frustration, but then he immediately backpedals and he's like, Master, I'm sorry, please, like, forgive me.
And Obi-Wan's like, well, I understand. It's not
yeah, and it's like, and that's a demonstration of their growth. Like, Obi-Wan doesn't reprimand him. He says, like, no, I understand. I miss him too.
Not a day goes by where I don't turn to his wisdom for how to teach you. And then finally, we get to the night.
It is time for us to depart our roles as master and student. It is time we become brothers.
Master? And
yeah, and we have one of the most quintessential, like, this scene is the proof of why the microseries really, for me at this point, is like, if I watch all the Star Wars saga movies, I can't do TCW for one, because TCW is just too fucking long. That's like 7 seasons. I'm not doing that for a movie marathon. But, like, this scene is almost the perfect example of really solidifying that Clone Wars Volume 1 and 2, when put together, really is Episode 2.5. Because this is such a quintessential scene for Anakin's journey.
We forgot about the council scene, where they talk about Grievous.
Oh yeah, when they talk about his knight. Yeah.
When was the last time...
Let's go with the knighting first, and then we'll backtrack to that.
Okay.
So, essentially, like, Anakin... This scene, to me, and the council scene before that, which we'll get to in a minute, I know, we're kind of working out of order, guys. Bear with us. It's like, these are scenes that, like, really, in the context of the main saga, should have been included within the movies. But there sadly aren't, just because mainly from a down to insufficient time. And so to me, it's almost like anytime I do a marathon between episode 1 and 6, I pretty much almost make it a habit to always squeeze the micro-series in between 2 and 3, because it just makes my viewing experience so much better with all that additional context.
Yeah.
And going back to the council scene.
Yeah. So basically, they discuss General Grievous, and then Obi-Wan. Now, keep in mind, Obi-Wan at this point...
Sure, we were exhausted. Ki-Adi-Mundi is coping so hard.
When was the last time
someone... Yeah, we were exhausted. But when was the last time someone fought against 5 Jedi and held his own?
And
held his own, more like kicked your ass.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so Obi-Wan, now keep in mind, Obi-Wan is a member of the council at this point, because there was a little bit of a time gap here. But he basically uses his position on the council to basically say, hey, I know this will generate debate, but because we need more knights.
Why don't we forego the trials and promote my Padawan Anakin to Jedi Knight?
And they bring up reasonable points, like, he is a gifted warrior, he's a gifted pilot, but he's often reckless with his gifts. Sometimes in the past, but Anakin has faced far worse things in the trials. Surely he passed the trial of skill when he defeated that dark assassin, and he's
endured a trial of the flesh by the hands of Count Dooku.
And he continued to pass every trial of courage that this war has tested him. But there is one test that he has yet to face. The trial of the spirit, facing the mirror. And now, keep in mind, Mace Windu is the only one that I believe is the one who kind of pushes back against Anakin being knighted. He even, Kit Fisto even says,
Mace and Anakin have always had a weird dynamic with each other. And it's kind of funny because it's a case of saying Mace, especially when you account for the Attack of the Clones movie and novelization, actually seemed much more supportive of Anakin back then. But I think it's a case where as Anakin further developed and the corrosive influence of Palpatine continued
speaking of
Palpatine,
Palpatine's been requesting this for some time. Politicians have no
and that's the point. It's almost a case of Windu's pushback is almost a pushback less against Anakin himself and more against the case of Palpatine and the kind of influence he has generated not only on Anakin but also among even the Jedi Order within their place in the Republic. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic that gets expanded on more in the multimedia project, particularly Shatterpoint. And then it also gets expanded a lot in the Revenge of the Sith novelization. So it's kind of, once again, it's kind of an interesting topic point that it's a shame that, once again, because of insufficient time, the movies could never really dive into. And the Clone Wars, TCW never really gets into it at all either.
No.
So,
and then we get to the knighting ceremony, and guess what? Mace is not present, despite the fact that there are several members.
No purple lightsaber.
Yeah, that might just be the biggest mark of disrespect, because most of the council members are usually there present when a knighting happens. And so Anakin gets knighted. He actually gets his braid cut off, which is a tradition that happens with most knighting ceremonies. And the first thing he does is he sends it to Padme, which weird little thing here, which I thought was a little. And then in response, she basically gifts R2 to Anakin, and this is how Anakin ends up basically, quote unquote, owning R2 because of that whole thing. And then we get a big montage of Anakin being heroic, fighting in the war. Note, now the fighters have actually changed, as we've kind of pointed out in some other videos. It goes from the Delta 7 to the Ectus 2. And I love this fighter. And then we cut to, during all this, Anakin's being heroic. He saves a couple Jedi from basically a droid that basically captures a Jedi in bubbles. I can't make this up if I tried. Go watch it. You'll understand. And then it gets to a kind of romantic moment where he's on Naboo, and actually, it shows Anakin actually has this scar. Now, the reason he has this scar is because, as we pointed out before in our last video, Ventress actually survived her duel on Yavin. And there's actually a comic panel where she actually strikes him with her lightsaber, and that's what causes the scar. And she even says in the comic, "I could have taken your head off with that last strike, boy." And basically, they have Anakin meets.
Doesn't Ventress make a direct threat pertaining to Padme too?
Yes,
and that's
later down the line. Yeah. So they have romantic reunion with Padme, and he even has
they really insinuate things with this, by the way, because right as they Padme checks the scar and they're embracing each other, then it just cuts to the bedroom, lights off.
And then it cuts to one of the most whimsical parts of the entire part 2, where Obi-Wan is literally trying to get to sleep and the rain keeps dripping on him and he's so miserable.
General Kenobi,
Commander Cody,
the siege goes well. With this rate of barrage, the shield should collapse in about 3 months.
But we've been here a month already.
Yes, sir. We're right on schedule. And it's great to me because this is almost an example of, again, another fun interaction when you think about the way the clones are in this show, because it's not even like Cody's deliberately trying to be funny. He's just,
Stating the
that is
facts.
just, he's just stating objective facts, and he's not really, it kind of demonstrates, like, with the way the clones are portrayed here, much more aligned with Attack of the Clones and, like, that kind of stuff in, just the movie personas. It's like they're so task driven that to them they're kind of almost oblivious to the idea of like complaining. It's like
And
to
then
them it's just kind of like
Anakin comes in
it's
and
like
he. Oh,
he's
sorry.
like, we've been here a month already. He's like, yeah, I know, but we
Right.
got 3 months to go, so we're good. Everything's fine.
And then Anakin comes in and he's literally carrying a bag full of bugs, and he even says, "But Master, you were the one who always taught me to feed off the living force. That's not what I. Where did you get that stuff anyway? From the enemy camp? What? You were there? What were you doing? Reconnaissance. How did you get past the shield? I found this ancient sewer that goes right under the old city. So I assume the plan is to crawl through the sewer, work our way through the defenses, fight our way to the shield generator, blow it up. That
Blow up the shield generator, knock out its defenses, and
oh,
thus
oh,
leave the base open to be overwhelmed by our troops.
yep.
Yep.
Let's go.
And see, and this is single-handedly, like, I love this, because to me, it's already, like I said, the microseries doesn't have a lot of time to cover a lot, but what it does cover feels really nice, because it's a case of saying, like, just this already shows such a contrast between how they were earlier,
Oh,
because it's like,
we
now
forgot
they're
one other
not
scene
in their
before
Attack of the
this.
Clones persona anymore.
We forgot one scene before this. We're actually like it shows Anakin with his mullet for the first time. Okay, the character here, I believe
Oh, yes,
he's
yes,
supposed to be a Nemoidian, but the funny thing is that they
he
don't
looks
go.
nothing like a Nemodian. That is
No,
just, I
that's
get it's an art style thing, but I'm like, Gendy, this is not like Gunray. This
no.
is
And in
not
fact, there's no like offensive accent. He goes, "I wonder how many Jedi they'll send. We have so much firepower. They'll need an army of Jedi to take this fortress. I have a visual. Jedi? I think so. How many?
how many? 500? No.
No. 50?
200? No. Yeah, 50?
Less.
Less.
30? Come on, how many?
2.
What? Give me those! And then he has like,
And then just sees the 2, montage starts, and I gotta credit, like, just even with the montage, nice. It's nice just seeing these moments of just, it showcases very thoroughly how much Anakin has grown to the point where he really does become the hero with no fear, essentially the poster boy of the entire Republic war effort between him and Obi-Wan. Like, it's really sold a lot in the Revenge of the Sith novelization how Anakin and Obi-Wan are kind of almost regarded as like miracle workers for
pretty
the
much.
Republic.
So after that, so we cut forward to where they blow up the shield generator. Oh, my favorite part. No, 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 wait. Did you hear something? Did you say something? Negative. They're all are alternatives to fighting, and he pulls out a bunch of little.
That's no fun.
That's no fun. And
And see, that's another great dynamic because I think what it shows very clearly, and it's just what I love about the whole sequence. Anakin and Obi-Wan by this point still have their... It's clear that in a way they are still the same people from earlier in the show, but they've grown a lot. Because it's a case of saying Obi-Wan has lightened up a lot more on Anakin and is less stern on him, but by the same token, Anakin has mellowed himself out more where he's less just arrogant and impulsive for the sake of it. However, it's clear there's bits of their own mindsets that still remain, because like Anakin is still very much the person of chop a battle droid in half first, ask questions later.
yeah,
While Obi-Wan is very much still this thinking outside everything else, and it's a good demonstration of pretty much like, I think where it really showcases is that Obi-Wan is effectively, it kind of really shows like that hammer and anvil type mentality
that
that they
they cover in
complement
the
each other.
novel. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really showcased here where their mindsets are just given a lot to work with, and it's nice seeing them grow because even in spite of these differences, they learn to embrace each other for them a lot more rather than just going yan 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 yeah like they were in volume 1. So it's a good contrast to signify their growth. And by this point, you can easily see these two and say, yeah, that is Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan and Anakin. Like,
and then we
to me,
get
it only,
and then we get one of the
yeah.
funnest montages where the droid army is basically rolling
Yeah,
through
the Outer Rim Siege's counterattack, led by General Grievous.
and the music here is brilliant, and I really like the way they like portray like how the droid army is really effective. And also, poor elephant people, like they look absolutely terrified. And then it cuts to Grievous
Hey, you
training.
think they had it bad? Think about the Shadow Head guys that got detained and their droids are just moving them en masse. They're just like,
Yeah.
nope, you go.
And
This
then
is our planet
and then
now.
it cuts to Grievous training with Dooku, and he's literally like saying,
Oh,
"Stop."
before we get to the Grievous Dooku thing, there's one thing I gotta mention about the counterattack montage. TCW, start taking notes. This is like how you signify a genuinely threatening set of antagonists. And it's just through short stuff like this. Like, you're not even having to do that much. This is just like a minute of footage, like maybe a minute and 30 seconds. But what is it showing? It is showing the Separatists winning battles. It is showing them actually gaining ground on fronts. Showing that, yeah, sure, the Republic may be getting good wins through Anakin and Obi-Wan, but for every... I mean, they highlight this explicitly later, but it's like for every one win Anakin and Obi-Wan do, there are just as many losses happening in other fronts because of Grievous. And effectively, it turns these two into effectively playing a very cat and mouse game with each other and really just dragging the war on, which of course is necessary for Sidious's plans. But I like it because it really sells the Separatists still as genuinely threatening antagonists that essentially our heroes have to work really, really hard to defeat, rather than how TCW kind of did it, where, let's be for real, the amount of times the Separatists actually won any type of conflict in that show is very rare.
It's very few and far between. So we cut to Grievous and Dooku sparring
Stop
together,
using standard attacks. Use the unorthodox.
and
How often must I tell you? Control my central line. Good.
and then he basically he's like, "Oh, and you got a new lightsaber. Your training has served me well. It has awarded me many trophies. Do not."
And you get to one of the best lines Dooku has ever said in any...
Can I do this one? Can I do this one?
Yeah, go
Okay.
for it.
Don't let your pursuit of trinkets cloud your reality. Remember what I taught you, General. If you are to succeed in combat against the best of the Jedi, you must have fear, surprise, and intimidation on your side. For if any one element is lacking, it would be best for you to retreat. You must break them before you engage them. Only then will you ensure victory and have your trophy. And then, like, the mechanical hand, like, reaches out and grabs
Yeah,
it.
just grabs it. And it's a great moment because it signifies Dooku as a genuinely effective trainer. And it showcases Grievous's threat level too in a very consistent way that makes sense. Because what Dooku's essentially saying is a lot of Grievous's advantages to be able to take on the Jedi are psychological. It's like he has to present himself as this ultra scary guy. Because as soon as you go against a Jedi that actually knows what the hell they're doing,
You lose the effect.
you lose the effect and you're put at a disadvantage. And I think that's the case of saying, again, it's another element where TCW kind of messed up, because it's like, it's not that, I think that, a lot of TCW fans accuse the O3 Grievous as being too overpowered. And while I do kind of understand the argument given the presentation, I don't agree with it in context, because take the Hypori incident. Yes, Grievous is absolutely demolishing them, but who is he demolishing? He is not demolishing 5 Jedi Masters who are all coordinated and at the top of their game. They are exhausted, they are
Broken.
not really well coordinated, and some of them are scared shitless out of their minds.
Including Shaggy. Which is...
Well, yeah, the younger Jedi especially are like really have poor composure, and even the Masters, while they're maintaining better composure, they're still scared. They don't know what kind of threat they're
that's another thing
dealing
I forgot to mention. The one guy, Crook, who Grievous actually picked up his lightsaber in Volume 1, he actually survived. And he would go on to be... he actually survived the Purge, and he would actually go on to become a Grandmaster of the Order. This is confirmed. I don't remember which issue it was, but...
Yeah, he ends up joining Luke's Jedi Order
Yeah, and
eventually.
he
So
is really cool. I really like him as a character.
he is a great character. It's one of those retcons you can accept just because he is that good of a character in the
Anyway,
EU.
so Sidious comes
But
in and he's
yeah,
like, "Report, General. What news from the front? The
the
strategy."
strategy is going perfectly, my lord. The Jedi and their forces have spread thin across the Outer Rim world in order to contain our new offensive.
Good, good. Now is the time to strike. Now is the time to launch our final operation. Is everything ready for your special mission, General?
Yes, Lord Sidious, the unsuspecting fools know not what awaits. So, yeah, pretty much this is the prelude to, I mean, it's
The
pretty
Battle of
obvious by this
Coruscant.
point, this is the prelude to the Battle of Coruscant. And what effectively makes this work is, again, another signifying threat level with Grievous. He is prepping all these strategies, he's making all of this happen. Like, it really, what I really got to give this microseries credit is, it legitimizes Grievous as a threat that makes it really, it makes it quite, like, it makes sense on why taking him down in Revenge of the Sith is so important. Because if you just go by the movie, he's just kind of a random
He just
cyborg
pops
with
up.
a Russian accent.
Pops up on the screen and that's it. There's nothing special about
There's
him.
no reputation to follow. There's no looking at this guy's feats and what he's done. And so all you think is, oh, robot Russian guy. That's all you really get. And it's kind of like, because of that, it makes you sit and go, why would taking him down be so important given Dooku being the actual like main leader of the Separatists is now dead? And so, but through the context of the microseries, you kind of get a lot more to work with because it shows, even though Dooku's dead at this point, by Revenge of the Sith, Grievous is still a significant enough threat where, yes, the Separatists are now on their back foot, but they still got fangs. They can still strike at the Republic and still kill thousands of people en masse because Grievous is just that terrifying and that strategic. And he knows how to strike where and when and at what times. He's very prominent with that, just even within the microseries, and of course you get more of that if you read into the EU. But
So yeah,
moving on to the next scene.
so it cuts back to Anakin and Obi-Wan. They're getting their briefing from Windu and Palpatine, and basically they say, "Oh yeah, on the contrary, my intelligence is quite good. General Grievous has seen a number of times traveling to planet Nelvon. This is actually kind of now okay. There are a couple events here. There are a couple things regarding
Yeah,
how
we should probably briefly talk about the discrepancies that exist between this and Labyrinth of Evil. So,
and TCW.
for the most part, so for context, most of the Clone Wars multimedia project is like pretty. I would say, I mean, you can, Deadponic, you can say any of your disagreements if you want, but I would say for the most part, the Clone Wars multimedia project was pretty tight from a continuity perspective. Like, it was very rare for stories to outright contradict each other on certain things. However, this is kind of one of the few instances where that happens because essentially both the novel and this microseries are trying to kind of depict the Battle of Coruscant and where Obi-Wan and Anakin were during those events pretty much at the same time. And so, and the reason I've looked up behind the scenes reasons why, and I think from what I can recall, the only information the microseries had to work with, because Labyrinth of Evil came out first, that came out back in January of 2005, and when the last few chapters were being worked on, by Genndy Tartakovsky, I think they only had an early draft of Labyrinth of Evil to work off of. So they try to keep the Battle of Coruscant as accurate to that original draft as possible, even though, obviously things got altered in the final book. But of course, where Obi-Wan and Anakin wasn't really given full coverage. So they decide, okay, they're hunting down Grievous. They end up on this planet on Nelvon, while in the book, they travel to a completely different planet. I forget the name of it.
Yeah, I
And
forget
they're
too.
going after Dooku.
Yeah, so they travel to Nelvon, and I think okay, this is the
I,
one.
I I would
Yeah,
like to ask a brief question, though, which we can cover more in detail when we do get to Labyrinth of Evil, but between the book and the microseries, which events surrounding the Battle of Coruscant, as well as where Obi-Wan and Anakin were during the events, which version do you kind of prefer? Like, which one do you feel like portrays the events a little better?
I prefer the micro series because there's also the discrepancy because of the book. The book does not explain how Anakin went from his gold-plated arm to the one we see in Revenge of the Sith. What the micro series does, and I prefer that. And also, we'll get into that further down the line, but that's the version I prefer because it does explain a great many things. Also, there's a couple Easter eggs in there that I wanted to touch on anyway. So they go to
All
Nelva.
right,
Yeah,
so yeah, let's move on.
they go to Nelvon. They run into a big monster, and I can't believe I'm making this reference. Hulk, for once your darn life, don't smash. Big monster. And well, that's basically what Anakin does.
Yeah,
He literally kills the monster, and then you see a bunch of tribes people, which are mostly women and children,
I
and
don't
like,
think you should have done that.
yeah. So they go back to the village, and they realize, and basically the elder explains through Obi-Wan's translation, well, we sent many warriors out, and they haven't returned. And then, well, like, basically they realize, well, I'm not sure if I'm, like, Obi-Wan says, I'm not sure if I'm hearing this right, but they're saying ghost hand, and you realize it's Anakin's hand. He literally holds it over, he goes, Ho Kazet! Ho Kazet! And it's like,
Yeah, and the people literally choose Anakin to essentially go on the spirit quest to rescue all the males of the tribe. So when Anakin departs, he does that,
oh,
and
they like the elder basically like throws these slugs on, and which creates all those all the markings, and well, they basically Anakin like he like I swear he's riding a yak of some kind, but he puts on a saddle
yeah,
and Obi-Wan brings up the fact that he's never actually he's faced most of the trials except for one, which is the trial of the
you
spirits,
try all the spirit. And
and
that the Force may have guided us so that you can complete this last trial.
And
And so,
Anakin says, "I won't fail you, Master." And Obi-Wan says, "No, Anakin, don't fail yourself." So he sets off, and then
such a good line, such a good line. It's like haunting in all the right way.
he sets off, and then then we cut back to Yoda
I,
meditating.
if it's all
Oh,
right, I
oh yeah,
feel like for the sake of the podcast narrative, it might be better if we just cover the entire Nelvon section
yeah,
first,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then we
Okay.
get to the Coruscant.
So Anakin sets off, and then he goes on his vision quest where he literally sees his future, which is not a not so subtle foreshadowing, an animated version of drawing of Darth Vader, which I think is looks really cool. And then he stumbles on I believe this is the Techno Union we're dealing with here, where he stumbles onto their lab, and if you pay close enough attention, you can actually see blueprints for General Grievous, at least some blueprints like regarding like his cybernetics. And it turns out these Nelvon males and these warriors have been basically mutated and cybernetically enhanced to basically and be brainwashed to become basically elite troops or cannon fodder. And well, basically Anakin's like, wait, you're Nelvon warriors. Try to remember what you're doing, and he has to defend himself, obviously. And so he manages to actually break their programming, and they basically say, okay, well, there's a big crystal in the middle of this generator, which is basically causing all these problems. Go destroy it. So Anakin does that. He literally hangs something down and thrusts his mechanical hand into the seismic generator, destroys the crystal, which blows up his hand, and well, this inspires the Nelvon warriors to basically pull off their cybernetics, and then we get one of the most. This is the most fuck around and find out moment of the entire series, where Anakin sees a bunch of those Techno Union guys and gets really pissed off to such a point where it seems like he actively kills them by crushing their mechanics. And yeah, wait,
Yeah, this is a excellent case where between the hand and also don't forget about the vision. That was a
oh
big
yeah,
thing
yeah,
too.
the
Like
vision, yeah.
when Anakin has the vision, it pretty much showcases like a it's generally hard to describe because it's mostly visual effect, but like it shows like a tribal man who's effectively defending his people from like essentially a darkness threat. And that darkness threat bites the hand off, replaces it with a dark hand, and that hand helps the village out in the short term, defeats enemies, conquers like animals and stuff and all that. But then eventually the darkness gets out of control and just consumes everyone, and then the user gets twisted, and for anyone who knows the series, it's a
It's not
very like
subtle at
not so
all.
subtle indication of like this is the path Anakin's going down. And it's kind of, even though it is like in a way like it's not that difficult to figure out, I at least appreciate the symbolism of it by committing to something more keen to Nelvon specifically, rather than TCW's idea of the Vision quest is, oh, let's just directly show Anakin the future on what he's gonna do.
Oh
Like,
god.
like the Mortis trilogy in so many ways is such a mess from a
It's a
story
mess, but
perspective.
it's an interesting take on like the physical manifestation of the light side and the dark side.
It's
How
it's like I said about the Clone Wars, or TCW. It's a mess, but it's a beautiful mess. That's the way
yeah.
I kind of, and I appreciate that the micro series at least commits a lot more to like, even though, like I said, it's not that difficult to figure out what it's trying to represent. It's at least trying to be subtle enough where it's kind of like it's not a direct one for one. And
So they return. So
yeah,
all the
Anakin kills the Techno Union guy in like the most brutal way possible. And I also like that the Techno Union guys kind of have their very cold, methodical composures because they're like, sir, we haven't fully tested the mind inhibitors yet. We don't know if this will work. And they're like, our concerns are, it's like our well, it was something along the lines of our worries are of no concern to General Grievous. And they're kind of it's pretty much a very like key indication that Grievous kind of orchestrated this project, and reading into EU we figure out why, because Grievous almost kind of saw a little bit of Kaleesh warriors within the Nelvon people. And so Grievous in a weird, really fucked up way almost kind of formed a kind of almost a kinship with them a little bit in a very twisted way.
yeah,
It's
and
so it's kind of like it's Grievous is one of those individuals where it's like I don't know if it's worse to be hated by him or to be admired by him, because if you're admired by him, he's just gonna still find a way to put you through hell. It's just in a way that's like serving his agenda. But
so Anakin and the warriors
yeah.
return to the village. One of the little girls sees her dad and sees like, oh, he's become like this mutated like freak of nature, but she still accepts him. And the day is saved. It's a touching moment, and Obi-Wan's basically kind of proud of Anakin. We'll get to the final scene later. Then we cut to the
Now,
battle.
now we're into the juice, like really
Oh
juicy
god,
stuff.
this is this
Let's
is
be for real, gentlemen.
I've been wanting to talk
Anyone
about
who's
this.
seen this micro series, you know what you came here for.
So
The Battle of Coruscant.
Yoda's
Right
meditating.
away, we are treated for Yoda. His meditation mode gets interrupted. Swarms of droid fighters and landing all across the window. Mace Windu opens the door and he's like, "The city's under attack." And
Defend the city we must.
honestly, I'm gonna say this: if I was Yoda, I would have been like, "No shit."
No shit, Sherlock. Defend the city we must. So then now this is the side thing that I noticed. Saisi Tin comes in and says, Master Windu, enemy starships are
Yeah,
continuing
they
to pour
turned
out.
Saisi Tin into a complete and utter badass, which
Mm,
almost makes it extra tragic how pitifully he gets killed off
mm.
in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, so they jump with their fighters and they take command. So Saisi Tin goes up to his cruiser and the clone says,
Wasn't
General Tin.
Saisi Tin noted to be like second to Anakin? Wasn't Saisi Tin to be noted to be second best pilot in the Jedi
Yes,
Order,
because he had
like with
his
Anakin being directly ahead of him?
yeah, because his mental ability also allowed him to basically chart astrogation charts without a navigomputer, which is something that um is expanded.
Most people can't do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he gets to the ship. The clone says, General Tin, the ship is lost. But it's time to get a new
No, no,
one.
no. Before we get to that, we gotta have the scene where 10, literally with all the Arc 1's entities, go up to the atmosphere, and right as they get up there are like
Hundreds of
thousands
ships.
of
Even
capital ships
like a Providence
fighting
class
each
comes
other.
out of hyperspace and literally rams one of the Vanators. It's really fucking cool.
It's crowded as fuck. And a lot of people would say that'd be batshit ridiculous, which in a way it is, but it's in a way that makes sense because it's limited uncharted hyperspace. So they're trying to like really, it's just such a crowded battle in every sense of the word, because right because both sides are just keep deploying reinforcements because the separatists keep deploying fleets to attack. Meanwhile, the Republic effectively is relocating a bunch of fleets from the Outer Rim sieges back to Coruscant. And this is where this isn't covered in the micro series, but it is noted in Labyrinth of Evil, is that Grievous purposely placed hyperspace mines like right at the ends of the hyperspace routes where the Republic reinforcement fleets were arriving. So like ships were getting blown up the minute they were getting out of hyperspace just because of the setup that was going on.
Okay, so
the battle's chaos. It's utter chaos.
So let's do AC-10. Okay, so he says it's time to get a new one, and they do one of the most badass boarding actions I've ever seen in sci-fi. He literally puts on his helmet, and they're like, "Prepare to board," and they literally just jump out of the side hangar where the ship is like this, and the ship's coming along, and they literally just drop onto a Providence. Saisitin like cuts his way through, makes his way to the bridge, takes control of the guns, and fires on the enemy ships. It's awesome. And then we cut back to Mace Windu. Now this is one of the weird, ridiculous moments that I'm going to talk about here. But basically, he's in his fighter. He literally gets like swatted by a bunch of Tri-Fighters. He jumps out, lands on a Vulture droid, slices it open with his lightsaber, literally thrusts his hand into a bunch of wires, and uses it to control the Vulture droid around. And while he's swatting things with his lightsaber, and an ARC-170 actually is shooting at him. They're like, we have 3 bogeys on our tail, now 4, take him out. And then it's and we also get one of the most badass clone last stands, or at least a last stand in that sense. Basically, Captain Fordo, or Commander Fordo, if you want to get technical, he's literally like, Section 4 is we can't hold out much longer, and he's literally like shooting a bunch of battle droids. He's literally like bashing them with his rifle. He's just trying to hold up as long as he can, and then he's like, fall back, and then Yoda comes in and does his thing. Yoda literally walks up, he picks up a bunch of droidicas and like moves them in the flight paths of the Tri-Fighters. Then he pushes all the battle droids back into their troop transports and collides them together. Like this is a showcase of how powerful Yoda truly is. And then, Master Windu comes in and, they attack. They attack a wave coming in, and they realize, oh shit, like a massive invasion, but no attempts to take the city. But it's really to disguise their true target, Palpatine. Cut to Palpatine sitting in his private residence, sipping tea, and then the Jedi come in, which we get Shock T again, and she literally says, Chancellor, we must get you to your bunker. And this leads to one of the funniest moments in the entire series.
Wait, we gotta get to the tension seed. So, while Yoda and Mace are fighting, which, by the way, Yoda and Mace tag teaming is such a great thing to watch, because those two together are just...
Mace is like punching out
you
droids.
See it, like, the two combine their force forces and, like, an entire, like, garrison of droids just get wiped out right then and there. So, like, it really just shows how these two put together, like, it really demonstrates the idea that even though Anakin has the most raw gifts, Yoda and Mace are the top 2 Jedi in terms of actual developed abilities and being able to really just clear the floor of any enemy that they deal with. It's less, ooh, big hurrah, and more just very subtle applications but have overwhelming effects. And then, when you get to the Shock T, Palpatine, of course, is being Palpatine. He's like, I would not cower in the face of this crisis.
And literally,
the sound starts going like, what is that sound?
And
we have to go now. Like, she recognizes his Grievous's sounds immediately, and Palpatine's like, see,
it was nothing.
It was nothing.
And then Grievous's head literally pops down. It's like he's like
Chancellor.
And it's so, like, he just pops his head down. He's like, it's so weird. I don't know why they did that, but it's still funny as hell. And so Well,
And you get Grievous presenting himself as this menace, and it is just undercutted by the most hilarious part where Palpatine is just being an utter troll. How dare you barge into my
private
private?
residence.
Who do you think you are? Chancellor, I don't think this is a... I'll
I
take
will
head.
handle this.
I am Supreme Chancellor Palpatine of the Galactic Republic, and I will not be bullied by any thug who happens to...
Take him, and then
Palpatine just pulls him, take him! And we cut to Grievous once again being a complete badass. All the troops are... Let's just say this. Grievous is not stuck in the room with the clones. The clones are stuck in the room with him.
And
Grievous
yeah,
opens the sabers, cuts them down like it's nothing, grabs one with his leg, slams him against, throws the Senate guard around,
and chucks one out the
window, and literally cuts to the Jedi running. They hit the elevator like they're trying to wait for it, and literally the other room has a fucking buzzsaw sound in there, and I'm like,
it's fucking great. And while this
they had to keep it PG while we could see Grievous in the room. The minute it's out of the room, I could imagine just dismantling them to pieces.
So while they're waiting for the elevator, one of my favorite little bits is the Ithorian Jedi, which is the one with the wide head. He keeps pressing the button, and it's like, come on! And then you see Grievous just barge out of the room. He's like running like an animal, and they try to.
Well, I think that what's cool about his run is like it kind of represents another interesting contrast for what we lead to later with him doing the spider crawl in Revenge of the Sith. Because this is pretty much the spider crawl. And it's cool because it's a demonstration of Grievous using it as an offensive technique rather than, oh, I'm just using it to run away. Like
pretty
he's
much, yeah.
actually employing it. And it's cool because once again, much like the first fight, which I don't think we covered much in the first fight, Grievous is able to move so ridiculously fast that even when the Jedi try to use Force abilities against him,
he just moves out of the way.
Grievous is able to dodge the TK momentum before it truly makes contact with him. So this time, while the other two Jedi are kind of helpless to deal with this, Shaak Ti effectively, which again is just such another good example of character growth, is Shaak Ti learns a lot from her first encounter with Grievous. So instead of trying to like directly hit him, she purposely times out where Grievous is going to jump and then immediately preemptively hits that spot, knocks Grievous off his feet,
but this doesn't
and then
stop
the elevator.
But this doesn't stop him. Then the Ithorian Jedi walks up and literally like causes a sonic attack, which basically buries him under rubble. And she says, "Ithorians, 4 throats." Quite
powerful. So I've heard.
And then
and Grievous, of course. That doesn't stop him.
And then
we get to another unintentionally hilarious bit
where the elevator is going down,
catching up to the elevator, and he just like catching up, and then he turns his head like,
"Hello."
And both people are so casual, by the way, because there's 2 clone guards that are with them. One of them's just like, "Oh," just starts loading a rocket launcher casually, and just like,
and then the smoking, it probably is like,
it's just. It's not supposed... Like, I don't know if they were purposely playing it for comedy, but it is just one of those... It is hilarious, intentionally or not, because it's like... The troopers are just acting so casually. They're like, oh, yeah, look. 7-foot cyborg menace killed all of my friends.
This'll stop them.
Yeah, exactly. And then, they reach the bottom of the elevator.
They reach the bottom of the elevator. This is actually where we get introduced, finally, to the Magna Guards. Now... For those of you who don't know, the Magna Guards are basically, they were actually trained by Grievous. He actually designed them.
They were combat-oriented droids that were meant for bodyguarding purposes and everything else. And they are effectively, they were personally trained by Grievous because they were programmed to have learning computers installed in them, which was a contrast for most droids, because most battle droids just had very fixed CPUs, like follow the programming, do whatever's basic. The Magna Guards weren't. They were implanted with essentially... Think of it like Terminator 2, where it's like they have a learning computer that allows it where the more they experience combat-related situations, the more they learn.
Oh, yeah, the electrostaff thing. Yeah. So the electrostaffs are actually... They're actually made with a frick alloy, I believe, which allows them to block lightsabers. And so they're chasing... the Jedi, which one of them is a Tals, believe it or not, is carrying Palpatine, and they're running through the streets, and all the while they're chasing him, And this is a really cool sequence where they're basically leapfrogging, and then they get to the tram, and Shakti's fighting 2-on-1, and she literally like she's pressed up against like the side, and she has like this expression like, "Holy shit, this train almost got me." She literally force pushes a man guard into the path of a train, and then we get one of the more interesting parts where um they're like kind of backed into a corner, and Shakti like uses the force to tie General Grievous's cape to one of the maglev trains, and while he's monologuing, she hits the button and he goes whoosh, and he's out of there. So then they go down into the tunnel which leads to the bunker. And well, Shakti realizes, oh shit, they're coming. So she basically says, okay, protect the Chancellor, I'll deal with this. And she has this is another like awesome action sequence, and it's a great character thing for Shakti. Now, before we get into that, we have to address one other thing that we've talked about in the past. Shakti's quote unquote death. Because there are actually three variations. The official version of Shakti's death in regards to how it's
The
depicted.
EU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's from the Force Unleashed. There is a deleted scene that shows that she was
There's
captured
two
by...
deleted scenes of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, there's...
One depicts her dying by Grievous, and then the other depicts her dying by Anakin.
Yeah. Now, I actually don't mind the deleted scene where she gets killed by Grievous because of that connection, but I don't like the one where Anakin just walks into her chamber and like backstabs her.
What is it, Skywalker? Psst. I'm like, what? Yeah, at least thank God the Force Unleashed said, yeah, no, we ain't doing that shit.
No.
If anything, the Force Unleashed actually really reinforces her being a badass, because the
entry in
I think it's covered in the novelization that her and Vader, and by Vader I'm referring to Nightfall Vader, got into a brief lightsaber duel during Operation Nightfall, and she was actually one of the few Jedi that could hold her own and actually managed to escape him before anything happened, and that's why Vader kind of made Shakti like the final test for Galen.
And a priority target. So yeah, so Shakti is facing hundreds of these Magna Guards, so she's literally like, she actually picks up one of the Electro Staffs, and literally Gandalf said she decapitates a Magna Guard with her knee. Like, you can't get more badass than that. And she manages to hold them off until they retreat, and she realizes, oh shit, Grievous is already in the bunker. So she literally like force dashes down the tunnel, and meanwhile, well, Grievous is already...
and by the way, signifying further badass, Grievous engages the two Jedi, the
Tals and the Ithorian.
Yeah. And literally, first time ever seen in the micro series, Grievous gets in the saber lock with both, and then arms detach, reveals the four arms. It's so good because the audience reaction same as the Jedi. The two Jedi are
like, shit, yeah.
Shit. And Grievous grabs the other two and just starts hackling them. And yeah, the four lightsabers is just too much. So both Jedi get cut down, and then Grievous goes up to Palpatine. He's like, and once again, it's another great arrogant moment.
Shakti actually rushes in, and
no, this is before then.
Oh yeah.
This is before then. Yeah, where Grievous is like, you're mine, old man. I'm not afraid of you. You wouldn't dare harm the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic. Whatever would your masters say? You're lucky they want you alive.
And then,
which is kind of a good moment to also demonstrate a key detail that I think the film was kind of vague on, was like, does Grievous know Palpatine and Sidious are one and the same? And the film's very kind of vague on it, like, it doesn't really signify it well one way or the other. I mean, you would naturally assume no, but still. But through the microseries, you really do get that confirmation that, yeah, no, he doesn't know that Sidious is Palpatine. Like, as far as he's concerned, they're two separate people.
So, yeah, Shakti rushes in. She gets disarmed by Grievous. But rather than killing her, he literally pulls up these electric wires. And when Windu comes down into the bunker, we see her tied up in these electric cables. And she says, I failed. And then it cuts to Grievous walking Palpatine to his ship. And Mace Windu jumps down, 4 lightsabers out, and Force Crush. And this is the origin of how Grievous got that cough. Now,
and from what I could recall, I think Genndy Tartakovsky added it. Pretty much, it was almost like a last minute addition when he figured out, oh yeah, oh shit, like Grievous and Revenge of the Sith, like within the actual script that, because from what I can recall, both James Lucino and Geddy Tartakovsky were originally working with like an old script of Revenge of the Sith to keep the continuity consistent. However, George being George always like modifies things. And so the thing is like George adds in the cough and he added it at a point in time where it was too late for Lucino to do anything about Labyrinth of Evil because by this point the book was already being published. However, the microseries got, when they're working on volume 2, they're kind of like, oh shit, like this is a like actual important element of Grievous's character. What the fuck do we do? And you could imagine just one of the writers like, I got it. We'll have Mace Windu crush his chest.
Genius!
And genius. Absolutely genius.
This does lead to a little itty-bitty issue where you would think that Grievous would hold some kind of grudge against Windu, and it would be Windu going up against Grievous in the movie, but I don't know.
They explain it. I mean, this is kind of a case where it's actually the continuity of what Labyrinth of Evil kind of helps explain that because in Labyrinth of Evil, him and Mace actually get into a full fight, and in that book, Grievous, like I said, we'll get more into detail when we cover the novel, but like Grievous actually starts copying the techniques of Volpad, which Mace is kind of like, oh fuck.
Shit. Yeah.
Like, so Mace is kind of almost at a position where I think one of the reasons he probably elects not to fight Grievous in Revenge of the Sith with that context was because he's kind of scared of like, oh shit, if Grievous like replicates my tactic, then he's just gonna be a lot harder to deal
there is
with.
the comic where Mace was fighting Dooku, and also he chucked, and this is where Adi Gallia was killed by Grievous, and
originally before TCW came around.
And
right.
Windu literally picks up a staff and chucks it at him, and he's actually damaged from this.
Yeah, so either way, it kind of has some degree of workings. It's just, yeah, but this has kind of made it the official explanation for the cough. They even add the audio of it at the end, right when the shuttle.
Nice little detail there.
It is, and it's a nice bit where it really shows that Gendy Tartakovsky, when creating this microseries as a whole, really did care a lot about the continuity between episode 2 and 3. Because to me, it's like, just a scene like that, yeah, is it a little tacked on? Sure, but like, it's a case of saying, regardless of whether or not it was added as a mandate, or regardless if it was a mandate by George, or if it was just something the showrunners did of their own accord, they were very quick to adapt and find a way to go, okay, let's connect this to Revenge of the Sith in a good way that makes our series feel very legitimate as a bridge. And that's really just praise I gotta give the series as a whole, but we'll get cut back to that, in a minute. So, yeah, Grievous ultimately escapes with Palpatine, and it cuts to the next scene with Obi-Wan and Anakin, where Anakin's getting the new prosthetic.
In fact, R2 is actually helping him, and this explains how Anakin gets why he has the black sleeve over his hand. In fact, I believe Anakin was actually using a little bit of Mechaduru here. It's very heavily implied throughout the lore that Anakin does have the Mechaduru ability in some capacity, so it would make sense that he would be able to build his own prosthetic hand, and R2 does play a role in that, and Anakin's reaction says to R2's question is, no, R2, it doesn't hurt much anymore. And basically they have a quick talk. Obi-Wan and Anakin have a quick talk, and then they get the urgent message from Coruscant patches through. Kenobi, Skywalker, Coruscant is under siege, and General Grievous has kidnapped the Supreme Chancellor. You must return immediately. Grievous. Battle stations. All cruisers and fighters. Prepare to jump into hyperspace. Move. And then it cuts to the final scene, which shows the space over Coruscant. It's just the battle, and then it just ends. It's brilliant. This is probably one of my favorite scenes from that last 20 minutes. It was such a good. It really does tie into Vrenus. It does explain how Anakin and Obi-Wan actually arrived so quickly, despite the whole, as you talked about, the whole hyperminds thing, which funny thing about
I
that.
mean, it's a case of saying, if previous ships trigger the mines, then they're not going to be there. So, but still, regardless, it's a case of saying, yeah, pretty much ends with the Battle of Coruscant continuing, and then yeah, that's the end of the micro series. So like, pretty much it's already clearly establishing like this is Revenge of the Sith opening crawl, and yeah, this pretty much marks an end to the micro series.
Yep.
Yeah, circling around, this is kind of the whole chain of events that occur and everything surrounding it. And while while part one definitely has like volume one has more to talk about pertaining to fights, part two really, or volume two, shit, um, just has a lot more going on story wise. And I'll actually credit another element, another minor detail I like. I like how Shakti in the Grievous fight, Shakti's actually like really holding her this time around. So it signifies that idea of like, yeah, Grievous is a very intimidating threat, but he's not invincible. He still has his shortcomings in certain areas, and Shakti capitalizes on that, like with the whole attaching the cape to the train. It's so good. But
Oh, the meme. I like trains. Oh no, no, like round.
yeah, yes. But anyways, yeah, cutting into the end of this, yeah. Before continuing, I would say, Deadponic, how would you like to rate the micro series for Volume 2 and then just the series as a whole?
Well, I say Volume 2 is definitely worthy of watching. I personally well, I'm not I wouldn't say don't watch the Nelvon sections, but the Nelvon sections are kind of the boring part for me personally. I've always liked the Battle of Coruscant and all that. But definitely this is Grievous's show essentially. This is basically where he is at the forefront. And also this is also where we get like, Anakin being a Jedi Knight, and this is how they established they dive deeper into the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan, which I can appreciate that a lot. There are some genuinely funny moments here that even someone as cynical as me gets a really good chuckle out of it. And you have to admit, like the action, while not as like good as like say in volume 1, is still really well put together. And it still has that still has that gravitas. There's still nuance here, and it is a very it's 100% like worthy of watching. As for the micro series as a whole, if you want the bridge between episode 2 and episode 3, this is the series if you're a Legends enthusiast. And
Honestly, I would even say not even just a Legends, but just someone that really just enjoys the Star Wars interactions because like it is a very simplistic series and has a pretty like low barrier to entry. Like you don't even really have to read the rest of the EU to really like this. Like it really is just it stands on its own in a lot of good ways.
actually, this series does have dedicated comic series. I found
It
out.
does. It does. And honestly, if anything, I think in a weird kind of twisted way, I actually think this micro series actually, people can debate which one is better, and that's for each individual to decide. But I'd actually say the micro series is actually tight from a continuity perspective with the films than TCW is. Because while TCW is still pretty good in its own merits, but I've always been of the opinion that I feel like TCW kind of serves more as a soft reboot of the prequels rather than an actual organic expansion of it.
It has that it like TCW has the emotional moments more so than the like getting into more of the the overall narrative. It almost has like it has that Saturday morning cartoon vibe to it, which I believe was the intent behind it. But when you get to season 7, yeah, you have like it's definitely playing into the Revenge of the Sith narrative, but this plays into the overall, like it starts from Attack of the Clones, relatively speaking, and then it ends directly at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. So it definitely has that connection that I can
It really
appreciate.
does stand as that episode 2.5
Yeah,
in every sense of the word. And
yeah,
it's yeah, and that's kind of what I mean because like TCW by it takes a lot of the film elements and it uses it as inspiration, but I feel like TCW is much more centered on trying to do its own thing that's separate from the movies, where it's like, oh, let's resurrect Darth Maul. Oh, let's have it centered on this character that has nothing to do. Oh, let's do this thing and that thing. And it's like, and it's kind of like, and I'm not necessarily saying that's bad, it's just different in that sense. While I feel like the micro series, which you could kind of apply this to the entire Clone Wars multimedia project too, but I'm talking about micro series in this context specifically, is I feel like it is much more committed to just working within the framework of what Attack of the Clones and Revenge is established. And it's much more content on taking what's already established there and just expanding it. So it's kind of like, yeah, there's no Darth Maul coming back, but hey, there's this character named General Grievous. Let's make him a complete badass and cool character that people can engage with. Oh, there's Obi-Wan and Anakin, main characters of episode 2 and 3. Let's give them even more framework and development within this show.
Oh, let's answer the question. How did Anakin go from Padawan to
a knight?
In
this answers the question.
Yeah.
Oh, how does Grievous adopt the Chancellor? This is the answer.
This is the answer.
So, and it really just showcases a progression where, like I said, I think even just as if you're just a Star Wars film enthusiast, I feel like this micro series really works as that. Like, because I've always said it, which people are probably going to slander me in the comments for it, but I don't give a shit. I always feel like the prequels is a plethora of great ideas that simply, I've always said this, the prequels are a great set of ideas. Their execution varies mainly because George is trying to handle a lot of stuff by himself. And I think the biggest, most consistent fundamental issue I have with the prequel, and I'll say it, I said it before and I'll say it again, it's one movie too short. It really is. Because The Phantom Menace is there, and The Phantom Menace is one of those movies where it's like, it has a lot of important information that does come into later, but it is relatively self-contained on its own and doesn't really have a lot to do with it in the plot relevance. Then you get Attack of the Clones where so much shit is going on where you're like, what the fuck is even happening?
There's like three plots going on at the same time. You have the love plot, you have the separatist plot.
Camino plot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like...
It's crazy. And then you get to Revenge of the Sith, which ties up loose ends, but I feel like in a way Revenge of the Sith suffers not only because it's trying to like really get a lot done in a short frame of time, but there's a lot of things they establish that just don't have a lot of context. Like, again, without the context of the microseries, you have no idea who the fuck General Grievous is. You really just don't. So, the credit I give the Clone Wars microseries is that while it's not literally like a Star Wars movie, it's almost the closest you can reasonably get to an episode 2.5 in a way that makes sense, with depicting the Clone Wars, depicting Anakin's knighting, the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan maturing.
Hell, if you edit it together, it could theoretically be its own movie.
It really could. It really could. And it does such a good job at just bridging that gap in a way that makes sense. And it doesn't try to alter context of the movies, because like one thing I always find funny is like Star Wars The Clone Wars. It's like, my powers have doubled since the last time we met. Count since when? Last week?
I mean,
or
we tend to
this time we'll do it together. Anakin, last time we fought him was together. Like, the microseries doesn't do any of that. It's very like, yeah, Obi-Wan and Anakin are chasing down Dooku, but they never truly encounter each other. Revenge of the Sith is the big moment where everyone is meeting. And that's, to me, much more organic within the framework of what the show's doing. And it makes the Clone Wars feel a little bit scale, which I like. Because I think almost an issue with TCW is, because you're having all these big tier villains and heroes meeting up all the frickin' time, it's kind of like, does neither side have anything better to do? Like, to me, it's almost kind of a case of saying, like, the conflict just feels like that's all it is, while with the microseries, it's like, there's thousands of fronts. So even though Anakin and Obi-Wan are really helping the Republic on this front, Grievous is really turning the tide towards the Separatists on this front. And so it makes the war as a whole just feel much more dynamic.
Yeah, and it's a very like I say it's definitely like it cleans up so many little things about that TCW kind of tore apart. Although we did bring up the continuity issue regarding Labyrinth of Evil and the series of where Anakin and Obi-Wan were when they were recalled. So that that's just that's just a little thing. I mean, we already talked about it, but overall, I say this is definitely if you haven't seen this series, watch it, especially with May the 4th coming up. Like this is 100% like its own contained movie. You could show this to somebody who's never seen any like has not seen TCW, and you could say, "Hey, this was the original Clone Wars show," and you could show them this is what this is the Clone Wars. At least for the Legends purists. Now, I will say if for example, at some point we will, cover the other stuff like we may cover the TCW movie, we may cover some other multimedia projects. Namely, I've actually wanted to cover Republic Commando, but that's a tale for another time. Anyway, any last thoughts before we sign off?
Um, well, I mean, I think outside of, I mean, like I said, just going into it, anyone who hasn't seen the micro series yet, because I know it's a little bit more obscure compared to TCW, like the main ways you can find it is just either on DVD or in the vintage section on Disney Plus. So it is a little more obscure, but it is a very much a worthy watch for anyone who hasn't done it. And I think anyone who claims to be a Star Wars fan should probably go see it. And just even if you're just someone that really just likes animation, because Genndy Tartakovsky really is just that talented as a 2D animator. That he is really good at just, he exaggerates a lot, but he knows how to do it in a way where it's still believable.
And
And
keep in mind, without this series, there would be no multimedia project technically. Or correct me if I'm wrong here.
well, in a way, because like I would say the multimedia project was being worked on around the same time, but this is like very much introduction to it. So to me, it's like the multimedia project wouldn't have gone as popular as it did if it wasn't for this, and this paved the way for TCW to eventually happen. Because literally, like, it's not coincidence that the art style of TCW is so similar to is so similar to the micro series, and that's because George loved how Genndy Tartakovsky made this series and animated it and all that so much that he was like, you know what, for the CGI show we're making, let's just make the art style pretty much almost exactly the same.
And
Like
some of the actors who actually were voiced the characters in the show do come back for TCW.
most of them do.
Most of
Yeah,
them,
most
yeah.
of them. Yeah, so like it's crazy just to think about, like arguably you could say if it wasn't for the micro success, TCW really wouldn't even exist because the micro series, George has openly admitted, was practically an experiment to see how Star Wars would fare on a mainstream television environment. And so ever since then, for better and for worse, he's like, hey, this did really well. Let's commission a 3D CGI show, push the technology and the framework even further. And yeah, obviously, there's upsides and downsides. The upside is we had a pretty cool show that got made as a result that had a lot of fun stories and kids like me back in the late 2000s something nice to grow up with. But of course, on the other hand, most EU fans say also contradicted the living hell out of the
Yeah.
multimedia project. So, you know, take it or leave it there. But still, all around, Micro Series is just great watch, great time. If you haven't seen it already, what the hell are you even doing here? Go watch it.
Yep. And
But
especially with May the 4th coming up,
yes, exactly.
this is a big year for Star Wars fans, and
Best prelude to Revenge of the Sith you're gonna get.
yeah, pretty
So
much. And also, when we get around to it, we would definitely recommend reading Labyrinth of Evil, especially because, well, no spoilers, but there is a legitimately funny moment in that book that we will be reenacting that has made me laugh multiple times, no matter how many times I read it, or
We gotta hold off one more video and then you can finally do it. But yeah, for anyone who's wondering, next upcoming content podcast between Deadponic and I will be covering this bad boy, Labyrinth of Evil,
Ooh.
which is pretty much the only other big, well, nowadays there's three preludes because you have Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 7, which we already covered. You have the Micro Series Volume 2, and this is the third big one, which actually, funny enough, came out first. So if anything, I said it backwards. First it's this book, then it's the Micro Series, then it's DCW Season 7.
But Labyrinth of Evil technically, well, actually, Micro Series technically contradicts Labyrinth of Evil, or something around those lines.
Continuity is a weird thing in Star Wars. I love Star Wars to death, but I swear continuity's funny. And yeah, funny enough, Labyrinth of Evil and the Micro Series, rare cases where the Clone Wars Multimedia Project has a continuity hiccup. I do call it a hiccup though, because it's kind of like it does get sorted out, and it's not a big thing. It's just depicting small events differently, which is fine. I'm kind of like, as long as the grand scheme story is the same, I can live with that.
Yeah.
It's when you get TCW that things really get messy.
Boy.
But like
we already talked about that. We already talked about that in Season 7. Although we didn't.
Yes, we did. Yes,
we didn't technically talk about how where Obi-Wan and Anakin were in Season 7, because they literally get the call that Coruscant is under attack, but they're literally not at Nelvon or wherever they are when they're trying to attack.
Yeah, it's Gilbana in Clone Wars Season 7. So yeah, like, but all around between that, Micro Series Part 2, great, and yeah, we'll be getting into Labyrinth of Evil very, very soon. We're count on that.
Also, don't forget the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith is coming out in theaters this week.
And this is where I think we're Deadponic. Are you comfortable with us sharing the big announcement here?
Which one is that?
The Revenge of the Sith announcement.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, Deadponic and I have talked about this and planned this for pretty much the past month. We are preparing to do a Revenge of the Sith review series, and this will be covered in essentially 3 parts. This will be covering first will be the Revenge of the Sith movie.
Obviously.
Goes without saying, obviously, which Deadponic and I agreed we're probably not going to release that till after we watch it again in theaters, just to kind of
we need to experience it again. And unfortunately, where I am,
and try to experience it the same way people experienced it in 2005.
Yeah, and now unfortunately, I don't know if it's going to be showing it where I am, but I do have it on Disney Plus. I have the DVD. We'll
figure out a way.
Yeah,
where there's a will, there's a way. So we'll figure it out, and then then the next big one we'll be covering. I have it in the bag right now, so bear with me. Got to keep things protected. The Revenge of the Sith novelization will be next.
I'm excited for this one.
That will be the second thing we'll be reviewing. And then the third one will be, which sadly I don't have my copy with me right now, will be the Revenge of the Sith video game.
Yes.
So,
Revenge of the Sith does have a video game.
And for anyone who's big fans of either or, the comic and the junior novelization will get a mention.
Yeah.
So don't worry about those, but they'll be covered in the other parts. But anyways, that is the major plan. We're planning on releasing pretty much one per week.
Relatively speaking, anyway.
Relatively speaking. Obviously, we have to account for schedule and logistical issues, so you'll just have to bear with us with that, but that's the major plan. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate your time and listening to our non-stop nerd rage rants.
We love doing these. We love doing these projects, and
they're fun. They're fun to do, and it's just a nice casual way for us to really just enjoy the time and talk about something we all like. So, yeah. But with that in mind, if you enjoyed what we did here, please consider giving us a like, or better yet, give us a like, subscribe, and really, most importantly, leave a comment. Show us tell us what you guys think, both about the video and just about the micro series. And with that out of the way, we hope you stay tuned for our next content. So, yeah. Deadponic, do you have any final words?
Nope, that's it. All right, I'm signing off.
Sounds good. Ladies and gentlemen, this is King Orange and Deadponic over there, and we are signing off. Until next time, peace out.